This video is about a piece called Clarinet Quintet in B minor by Johannes Brahms. The words in B minor in the title refers to the key the piece is written in. In music, the key of a piece is the group of pitches or scale that forms the basis of the entire composition. In this case, the scale the piece is based on is B minor. Brahms composed this piece towards the end of the 19th century in 1891, and it's regarded as one of the greatest clarinet quintets of all time. Your new piece could be inspired by this one in lots of ways. For example, you might be inspired by the composer and his life, or what you think this piece is about, or how it makes you feel when listening to it. You might be inspired by the music itself, for example, a particular tune or rhythmic idea, and use samples of those in your new piece. You could also be inspired by some of the methods the composer used to create this piece and apply those same techniques to your own new music. This clarinet quintet is split into 4 smaller pieces called movements. And for this video, we're going to concentrate on the second movement only. Let's take a listen. How does that music make you feel? What did it make you think of while you were listening to it? Johannes Brahms was born in 1833 in the German city Hamburg. His father was a musician who played several different instruments, so it's no surprise that Brahms loved music. When he was older, he travelled around Europe playing piano for a Hungarian violinist. Brahms was inspired by this and the bands from other travelling communities he heard when visiting Hungary. Historically, this music was known as gypsy music. As well as composing this clarinet quintet, Brahms composed music for solo instruments like the piano and for larger groups of musicians too, for example, symphony orchestras and choirs. In Western European music, we often group periods of time in history into different headings. Each period has its own musical styles, new instruments, and new composers. For example, the Renaissance period lasted from around 1400 to 1600. The Classical period covers music composed between 1750 to 1820 and includes some incredible composers such as Mozart and Beethoven. The period of music in which Brahms lived and composed music is called the Romantic period. Now, in this time, composers started to look for more freedom, drama, and expression in the music they created. Passion ran high in this era, with composers often sharing their deepest thoughts and feelings through their music. You'll find lots of beautiful melodies and intense harmonies during the Romantic period. And this clarinet quintet is a great example of music written in this time, with beautiful yearning melodies and lush textures. Let's have a look at some of the music then and think how you could use similar ideas in your own writing. I mentioned earlier that Brahms was inspired by Hungarian folk music, and there are examples of this in the second movement of the clarinet quintet. At the start of that extract, the clarinet takes the role of the leader, like in the music of what was known as Hungarian gypsy bands. The clarinet part is extremely difficult, as if Brahms is showing off what the clarinet can do, while the rest of the instruments have more of an accompanying role. Perhaps you could be inspired by the music of another culture or folk tradition in your piece. As an exercise, see if you can compose a short section of music, 4 to 8 bars for example, where the string parts have a very simple accompanying role, but the clarinet is the lead, demonstrating how it can play a mixture of low and high pitches and complicated rhythms. I mentioned previously about the music in the Romantic period having beautiful, yearning melodies. Let's take a listen to the opening of this second movement again to hear an example of this. Here, the long melody you can hear is in the clarinet part. Notice that it doesn't jump around from extremely high to really low pitches. Instead, the notes are quite close together as the clarinet moves from one to the next. But what I think really helps this melody have that yearning feel is actually in the accompanying string parts. A lot of music has a pulse, the regular beat that runs throughout, the thing we often tap our feet to. But in this passage of music, it's hard to actually feel where that beat is. And it's this that contributes to that longing, yearning feel to the music. To explain how Brahms does this, we need to take a look at the string parts. First, let's take a look at the first violin part. Can you see that it's almost imitating the melody in the clarinet part, but using different pitches? Let's take a listen. Imitation is a device that has been used by composers for hundreds of years. Now let's take a look at the second violin part. Apart from the first note, this part is either playing 2 quaver notes or 3 triplet quavers on every beat. A quaver lasts for half a beat, so when you have 2 together, that makes 1 full beat. These are called duplets. Let's hear how this sounds. Triplet quavers are different. For this, instead of having 2 in 1 beat, you fit 3 all the same length in 1 beat. And this is shown by having the 3 quavers grouped together and the number 3 written above or below them. They sound like this. So, as you can see, the second violin part has a mixture of these duplet and triplet rhythms. Now look at the viola part. You'll notice that this too has a mixture of duplets and triplets. But quite often in this passage of music, when the second violin is playing a duplet, the viola is playing a triplet. And when the viola is playing a duplet, the second violin is playing a triplet. And when you have this mixture of duplets and triplets happening at the same time, it can blur the sense of pulse and rhythm. And this is something you might want to try in your music. Let's take a listen to that passage of music again. See if you can create a short passage of music that uses duplets and triplets alongside a long melody to blur that sense of pulse. Sometimes it can be difficult to know how to develop your music, but here's one very simple idea you can take from Brahms's piece. Following that passage of music you just heard, Brahms repeats almost identically what has just been played. However, this time with the violin and clarinet swapping roles. This time the violin is the instrument that leads with the melody and the clarinet is the one that's imitating. So when you're composing your piece, do repeat and recycle some of your ideas. Sometimes just the simplest of small changes can have a huge difference to the overall sound. That's it for this short video. I hope you enjoyed learning about Brahms' Clarinet Quintet in B minor and some of the composition techniques he used. And good luck with your composition. We can't wait to hear what you create.